For 3 generations, the Richardsons had worked their rugged stretch of land near the Canadian border, but none of them had any idea they were farming atop one of the most extraordinary military installations ever built on American soil. The mysterious metal door that James Richardson discovered beneath his Montana wheat fields wouldn't just reshape his understanding of his family's 175-acre farm. It would uncover a World War II secret so significant that it would leave experts questioning everything they thought they knew about American history. Before we reveal what James found behind that mysterious door, tell us in the comments where you're watching from. And make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow we're sharing another incredible discovery that was just unearthed last week. The Richardson farm had always been modest compared to the sprawling industrial operations that had gradually swallowed up neighboring properties over the years. The old white farmhouse, built by James's grandfather Robert in 1947, right after he returned from serving in the Pacific, stood as a testament to simpler times, its paint now peeling and wooden steps creaking under decades of Montana winters. The property's iconic grain silo, visible for miles across the flat landscape, had become a local landmark, its weathered metal surface catching the golden light of dawn each morning as combines rolled through the endless fields of wheat. At 52, James had watched the farming landscape transform around him with a mixture of resignation and determination. Corporate megafarms, with their GPS-guided machinery and optimization algorithms, had made it nearly impossible for family operations like his to compete. His wife, Linda, had taken a job at the local high school teaching chemistry to help make ends meet, while their teenage children, Mark and Emily, had stopped asking for new phones or clothes, sensing the growing tension in their parents' hushed conversations about finances. The past 5 years had brought nothing but hardship to the Richardson farm. Falling grain prices had squeezed their profits to almost nothing, while equipment costs soared higher each season. 3 consecutive years of drought had depleted their savings, and the bank had started sending letters about their mounting debt. The thought of selling the family farm, something that had sustained 3 generations of Richardsons, kept James awake at night, tossing and turning as he considered the unthinkable. James's grandfather Robert had purchased this land in 1947 with money he'd saved during his military service, choosing this particular plot because of its rich soil and reliable water table. Under his management, the farm had thrived, producing record wheat harvests throughout the 1950s and 60s. James still kept his grandfather's worn Montana Farmer of the Year plaque from 1962 hanging in his office, a bittersweet reminder of more prosperous times. The community had noticed the farm's decline. Neighbors who once came to admire their prize-winning wheat now whispered about the aging equipment and decreasing size of their harvests. Some had offered help, but pride kept James from accepting what felt like charity. The Richardson name had meant something in Valley County: self-reliance, hard work, and success. Now it seemed to represent yet another family farm, failing in the face of industrial agriculture and changing times. Linda had been his rock through it all, picking up extra tutoring hours after school and maintaining an optimistic outlook despite their mounting challenges. Their children had inherited their parents' resilience. Mark, 17, spent every free hour helping with farm work, while Emily, 15, had started a small vegetable garden to supplement their groceries. The family's proud farming heritage was slipping away, one unpaid bill at a time, but they faced each day together. On a scorching day in July 2024, while using ground-penetrating radar to locate a broken irrigation pipe, James noticed something that would change everything. The radar screen showed a perfect square outline, roughly 20 feet on each side, buried 8 feet beneath his southeastern wheat field. At first, he assumed it was some kind of old foundation or buried debris. The land had been farmed since the early 1900s, and finding remnants of old structures wasn't uncommon. But what made this different was its precision. The edges were too sharp, too perfectly aligned to be random. And there was something else, a smaller square within the larger one, positioned exactly in the center. As James adjusted the radar's settings for a clearer image, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was looking at something that wasn't supposed to be found. What he discovered next would unravel a mystery that had remained buried in these fields for over 75 years, a secret that would transform not just the Richardson farm, but our understanding of one of history's most significant conflicts. The discovery of the strange underground structure couldn't have come at a more critical time for the Richardson family. That morning, James had received another letter from Western Montana Bank. This one marked urgent in bold red letters. The bank was threatening to foreclose on their equipment loans, putting their entire operation at risk. The combine harvester, that had been the farm's lifeline for the past decade, was already well beyond its service life, held together by James's determination and spare parts scrounged from local auctions. "We've got 3 weeks until harvest," James explained to Linda that evening, spreading the bank documents across their kitchen table. The warm glow of the setting sun filtered through their window, casting long shadows across papers filled with numbers that refused to add up. "If the combine breaks down this time, we're finished." Linda reached across the table and squeezed his hand, her wedding ring catching the light, the same ring James's father had given his mother 40 years ago, a symbol of the family's endurance through hard times. Mark and Emily sat quietly, at the far end of the table, pushing their food around their plates. They'd grown used to these tense discussions, but tonight felt different. "Maybe I could skip college next year," Mark offered, his voice steady despite the weight of his words. "Work the farm full-time instead." The suggestion hung heavy in the air, representing everything James and Linda had fought to avoid, their children sacrificing their futures to keep the family legacy alive. The Richardson farm had weathered tough times before. James's grandfather, Robert, had survived the farming crisis of the 1980s by diversifying into specialty grains. His father, Thomas, had adapted to changing markets in the early 2000s by embracing new farming techniques. But this was different. Climate change had made weather patterns increasingly unpredictable, while corporate farming conglomerates had driven prices so low that even breaking even seemed like a victory. The contrast between the Richardson property and their neighbors told the story. To the north, Capital Agricultural Industries' massive operation stretched to the horizon, their fleet of new combines moving with mechanical precision through endless fields. To the south, Midwest Grain Corporation had recently acquired 3 more family farms, their corporate logo now adorning silos that had once borne family names. But now, as James studied the mysterious underground structure on his radar screen, something else worried him. The perfect geometric shape shouldn't exist. Not here, not 8 feet underground, not on land that had been continuously farmed for over 70 years. He'd spent his entire life working this soil, as had his father and grandfather before him. How had none of them ever noticed anything unusual? The timing of his grandfather's purchase of the farm had always been a point of family pride, a returning war hero starting fresh after serving his country. But now, James couldn't help wondering if there was more to the story. Robert Richardson had been stationed in the Pacific Theater during World War II, working in military intelligence. He'd never talked much about his service, taking whatever secrets he knew to his grave when he passed away in 1989. That night, after the rest of the family had gone to bed, James pulled out his grandfather's old military trunk from the attic. The musty box contained the usual mementos, service medals, photographs, and letters from the front, but something caught his eye that he'd never noticed before. Among his grandfather's discharge papers was a sealed envelope marked Property Survey, classified 1947. His hands trembling slightly, James carefully opened the brittle paper. The survey document was unlike anything he'd ever seen. Technical. Drawings and coordinates covered the yellowed pages, along with stamps from something called Project Horizon. Most of the text had been heavily redacted, but one phrase stood out clearly. Underground access point 17A must remain concealed under agricultural development. James? Linda's voice startled him. She stood in the doorway, wrapping her robe, tighter against the night chill. "What are you doing up so late?" He looked up at his wife, the documents trembling in his hands. "I think," he said slowly, "I think my grandfather didn't just buy this farm by chance. I think he was assigned here." The next morning, James called the only person he thought might be able to help make sense of what he'd found. Dr. Catherine Chen, a military historian at Montana State University, had written extensively about classified World War II operations in the northern United States. Her response to the photos he sent of the radar image and documents was immediate and concerning. "Don't show these to anyone else. I'm driving up tomorrow. And James, whatever you do, don't try to access whatever's down there, not until I arrive." As darkness fell over the Richardson farm that evening, James stood in his wheat field, staring at the ground that had suddenly become much more than just earth to cultivate. Somewhere below his feet lay a door that hadn't been opened in over 7 decades. But as he would soon discover, some doors were kept closed for very good reasons. Little did he know that by this time tomorrow, his quiet family farm would become the center of a mystery that would attract attention from the highest levels of government, and the secret beneath his wheat field would prove to be far more significant than anyone could have imagined. Dr. Catherine Chen arrived at the Richardson farm just as the sun was cresting the eastern horizon, her university-issued SUV kicking up dust along the gravel driveway. James noticed immediately that she wasn't alone. A tall, stern-looking man in a dark suit emerged from the passenger side, his government-issue earpiece and watchful demeanor suggesting this was more than just an academic visit. "James, this is Agent David Morris," Dr. Chen said, her usual academic enthusiasm tempered by obvious concern. "He's with a specialized historical research division of the Department of Defense." The agent's handshake was firm, his expression guarded. "Mr. Richardson, what you've discovered may have significant national security implications. We need to proceed very carefully." Linda and the kids watched from the kitchen window as James led their visitors to the wheat field. Emily clutched her father's old digital camera, determined to document whatever they might find. Mark stood protectively close to his mother, his young face etched with worry. The morning news played quietly in the background, its mundane reports of weather and local events feeling surreal against the drama unfolding in their own backyard. Agent Morris's specialized equipment arrived an hour later. 3 unmarked black vans carrying what looked like military-grade scanning technology. Teams of technicians in civilian clothes began setting up a perimeter around the area James had marked. Dr. Chen explained that they were using something called quantum magnetometry, technology that could create detailed 3D images of underground structures without disturbing the soil. "This is remarkable," Dr. Chen muttered, studying the first detailed scans. "The construction techniques, they're decades ahead of anything that existed in the 1940s. Agent Morris spoke quietly into his earpiece, his expression darkening as he received some unseen response. The underground structure was far larger than James's initial radar scan had suggested, a vast complex stretching well beyond the boundaries of the wheat field. As the morning progressed, more details emerged. The structure appeared to be a sophisticated facility with multiple chambers and corridors branching off from the central access point. But it was the construction materials that caused the most concern among the experts. "These readings don't make sense," one technician said, recalibrating his equipment. "The metal composition, we can't even identify some of these alloys." While the teams worked, James returned to his grandfather's military trunk, searching for more clues. Hidden in a false bottom, he discovered a small leather-bound journal, its pages filled with Robert Richardson's careful handwriting. The entries stopped abruptly in late 1946, but what they revealed was unsettling. "Project Horizon exceeds all expectations," one entry read. "The implications of what we've recovered are staggering. The decision to bury it all seems criminal. But perhaps they're right, the world isn't ready." By midday, more government vehicles had arrived. Teams erected privacy screens around the perimeter, and a mobile command center was established in one of the larger vans. Local residents driving by slowed to stare at the unusual activity, and James's phone began buzzing with text messages from curious neighbors. "This is still my property," James insisted, when Agent Morris suggested the family should temporarily relocate to a hotel. "Whatever's down there has been here for 3 generations. We're not going anywhere." The agent's expression softened slightly. "Mr. Richardson, I understand your position, but what we're dealing with here, it's complicated. There are aspects of your grandfather's service that remain classified to this day." Dr. Chen had been cross-referencing the journal entries with declassified military records on her laptop. "Project Horizon," she explained, "wasn't just a military installation program. According to scattered references, it was established to handle something discovered in the Pacific Theater during the final months of the war, something that changed everything they thought they knew about." She stopped abruptly as Agent Morris shot her a warning look. That evening, the Richardson family gathered in their living room, the usual sounds of farm life now replaced by the hum of generators and equipment outside. "Dad," Emily said, showing him something on her phone, "people are talking online. Someone posted pictures of all the vehicles. There are rumors about a UFO crash site." Linda squeezed James's hand. "Should we be worried?" As darkness fell, powerful floodlights illuminated the site. Security personnel patrolled the perimeter, and satellite dishes were aimed skyward from the mobile command center. James stood on his porch, watching the surreal scene unfold on land that had known nothing more dramatic than the seasonal cycles of planting and harvest for 75 years. The latest scans had revealed something else. Power readings emanating from deep within the structure. "That's impossible," one of the technicians muttered. "Nothing down there should still be operational after all this time." But the readings were clear. Somewhere beneath the wheat field, something was still running, still waiting to be discovered. James overheard fragments of Agent Morris's phone conversation. "Sir, the energy signatures match the others." "Yes, exactly like the Pacific site." "No, we haven't attempted access yet, but the door mechanics appear intact." "Yes, sir, I understand the protocols, but if this is really another Horizon facility..." As night settled over the Richardson farm, the floodlights cast long shadows across the wheat field, turning the familiar landscape into something alien and foreboding. Tomorrow they would attempt to open the door that had remained sealed for 7 decades. But as James lay awake in bed, his grandfather's journal clutched in his hands, he couldn't shake the feeling that some doors were meant to stay closed, some secrets meant to stay buried beneath the quiet earth of a Montana farm. Little did they know, the energy readings from deep underground were getting stronger, pulsing with a rhythm that seemed almost like a heartbeat, as if something buried in the earth was slowly awakening after a long, long sleep. The decision to open the underground door was made at 4:47 a.m. as the first hints of dawn began to color the eastern Montana sky. The energy readings from beneath the wheat field had intensified throughout the night, developing a pattern that Agent Morris described as concerningly deliberate. Whatever lay beneath the Richardson farm wasn't just active, it was responding to their presence above. A specialized access team arrived before sunrise in a convoy of unmarked vehicles. They brought with them equipment that looked more suited to a space mission than a farm excavation. Protective suits with built-in atmospheric sensors, advanced cutting tools, and what appeared to be some form of radiation shielding. James watched from behind a hastily erected safety barrier as they assembled their gear with practiced precision. "According to your grandfather's journal," Dr. Chen explained, showing James a particular entry, "Project Horizon wasn't just about hiding something. They were containing it, studying it. The facilities were designed to be self-sustaining, powered by technology that wasn't supposed to exist in the 1940s. She paused, choosing her words carefully. The Pacific discovery changed everything, but they couldn't let the world know. Not then. Maybe not ever. The initial excavation proceeded, with methodical caution. Layers of soil were carefully removed, revealing more of the structure beneath. The door itself was unlike anything they'd expected, not the rusted military bunker entrance they'd anticipated, but something that looked impossibly pristine. Its surface was a seamless metallic panel, approximately 12 feet square, with no visible hinges or conventional locking mechanism. "This matches the descriptions from the Pacific site," Agent Morris said, examining the door's unusual surface. Geometric patterns were etched into the metal in a spiral configuration, creating an effect that seemed to draw the eye inward. The material itself defied analysis. The team's handheld scanners displayed conflicting readings, as if the door's composition was somehow shifting or multidimensional. Linda and the kids had joined James behind the safety barrier, watching in stunned silence as more government vehicles arrived. Emily documented everything with her camera, while Mark stood rigid with tension, his hands gripping the barrier until his knuckles turned white. The morning sun cast long shadows across the scene, making the scientific equipment and personnel seem even more otherworldly against the backdrop of their familiar farm. The first attempt to open the door triggered an unexpected response. As soon as the access team's equipment made contact with the surface, the geometric patterns began to emit a soft, pulsing light. The energy readings spiked dramatically, and a low-frequency hum vibrated through the ground, causing the wheat in the surrounding field to sway in an unnatural pattern. "Everyone back," Agent Morris ordered, as additional security personnel moved into position. The door's surface had begun to change, the patterns realigning themselves like an intricate puzzle solving itself. Dr. Chen frantically compared the phenomenon to notes in Robert Richardson's journal. "This is exactly what he described," she said, her voice trembling with excitement and fear. "The activation sequence, it's responding to presence just like in the Pacific." The team's equipment began malfunctioning, displays flickering with interference. The quantum magnetometry readings went haywire, showing impossible spatial configurations beneath the door. These readings suggest the facility extends far deeper than any conventional construction should allow, one technician reported, his professional demeanor cracking slightly. "It's as if the space itself is folded." At exactly 6:13 a.m., as the morning sun crested the horizon, the door opened. There was no mechanical sound, no grinding of aged machinery. The seamless surface simply shifted, segments sliding apart with liquid precision to reveal a darkness that seemed to swallow the morning light. The access team's floodlights penetrated, only a few feet into the opening, before their beams seemed to bend and dissipate. "This is where we need to be extremely careful," Agent Morris announced, gathering the key personnel. "Based on the Pacific Site protocols, we have no idea what kind of preservation systems might still be active down there. The atmosphere could be toxic. There could be defense mechanisms." He paused, looking directly at James. "And there's something else you need to know about your grandfather's role in all this." Dr. Chen handed James another document she'd found encrypted in his grandfather's papers. "Robert Richardson wasn't just assigned to guard this facility," she explained. "He was chosen because of what happened in the Pacific. He was one of only 3 people who directly interacted with what they found there and survived. Whatever's down there, he knew exactly what he was protecting. The energy pulses from below grew stronger, developing a rhythm that several team members described as almost musical. Equipment readings suggested movement deep within the facility, as if ancient systems were awakening from decades of dormancy. The air around the opening took on a peculiar quality, with visible distortions that defied scientific explanation. More official vehicles began arriving, unmarked helicopters landing in the adjacent field, mobile laboratory units being set up, and what looked like military personnel trying very hard not to look like military personnel. The operation was growing far beyond anything James could have imagined when he first noticed that anomaly on his ground-penetrating radar. "I should be on the first team down there," James insisted to Agent Morris. "This is my family's land, my grandfather's legacy." The agent shook his head. "It's not that simple, Mr. Richardson. What's down there? It's beyond any of our clearance levels. We're waiting for authorization from—" He stopped mid-sentence as all their attention was drawn to a new sound emanating from the opening. A deep, resonant tone began pulsing from within the facility, causing the ground to vibrate at a molecular level. The wheat field rippled in concentric circles around the opening, and the air itself seemed to thicken with potential energy. The access team's instruments were registering phenomena that, according to Dr. Chen, should have been physically impossible. And then from the depths of the opening came a light, not the reflection of their floodlights, but something else. A soft blue-green illumination that moved like liquid through the air. As it reached the surface, every piece of electronic equipment within a 100-yard radius simultaneously activated, displays showing identical patterns of symbols that matched the door's geometric designs. "My God," Dr. Chen whispered, her academic composure finally breaking. "It's exactly what Robert wrote about. The patterns, the energy signature. This isn't just a storage facility." She turned to James, her face pale in the ethereal light. "Your grandfather wasn't just protecting something from World War II. He was protecting something that rewrote everything we thought we knew about human history. And now it's waking up." As the strange light continued to rise from the opening, casting otherworldly shadows across the faces of everyone present, James realized that his family's quiet Montana farm was about to become the center of a mystery that would change not just his understanding of his grandfather's legacy, but of humanity's place in the universe itself. The specialized access team stood at the threshold of the underground opening, their advanced protective suits gleaming in the mix of morning sunlight and the mysterious blue-green illumination still emanating from below. The team leader, Dr. Sarah Martinez, performed one final check of her equipment: atmospheric sensors, radiation detectors, and a sophisticated camera system that would transmit everything they encountered back to the surface in real time. Inside, the mobile command center banks of monitors displayed various data streams: environmental readings, structural analysis, energy signatures, and multiple camera feeds. Agent Morris stood behind the technical team, his usual stoic expression showing hints of tension. Dr. Chen sat nearby, Robert Richardson's journal open on her laptop, ready to compare any discoveries with his cryptic notes. Beginning initial descent at 7:22 a.m. Mountain Time, Dr. Martinez's voice crackled over the command center speakers. The team's helmet cameras showed the first few steps down what appeared to be a perfectly preserved staircase, not rough-hewn, military construction, but precisely engineered steps that seemed to absorb and redirect their lights in unusual ways. Atmospheric readings are impossible, one of the team members reported. The air is completely pure, like it's being actively filtered. Temperature is a constant 68 degrees Fahrenheit. No signs of degradation or decay, despite being sealed for over 70 years. The scientific team exchanged concerned looks. This level of preservation shouldn't have been possible with 1940s technology. 20 feet below the surface, the staircase opened into a vast chamber that defied all expectations. The team's lights revealed walls covered in the same geometric patterns as the door, but here they were active, pulsing with that same blue-green energy, creating moving images that seemed to float in three-dimensional space. James and his family watched the feeds in stunned silence. The chamber was clearly artificial, yet employed architecture and technology that seemed impossible for its supposed age. The ceiling rose at least 30 feet, supported by columns that appeared to be made of the same unidentifiable metal as the entrance. But it was what stood at the center of the chamber that caused everyone's breath to catch. "Are you seeing this?" Dr. Martinez's voice was barely a whisper. In the middle of the chamber stood what could only be described as a control center, but unlike anything ever seen in human engineering. A series of curved, organic-looking consoles arranged in a circular pattern, their surfaces covered with softly glowing symbols that matched those found in Robert Richardson's journal. "These aren't just random patterns," Dr. Chen explained, frantically, comparing the symbols with her research. "They're identical to markings found at ancient sites across the globe, monuments and artifacts that archaeologists have been unable to explain. But here they're clearly part of an operational interface." As the team continued their exploration, more stunning details emerged. The chamber contained what appeared to be documentation, not paper or microfilm, but crystal-like structures that, when approached, projected detailed technical schematics into the air. The designs showed technology far beyond what should have existed in the 1940s, or even today. "There's something else," Dr. Chen said, showing James a particular page in his grandfather's journal. "Robert wasn't just assigned here because he survived contact in the Pacific. According to this, he was chosen because he could interact with the technology. Something about his genetic profile made him compatible with these systems." The exploration team had reached the far end of the chamber, where a massive curved wall displayed what appeared to be a star map. But the configurations were wrong for any known period in Earth's history. Dr. Martinez approached one of the consoles, her instruments recording unprecedented energy readings. Without warning, the entire chamber hummed to life. The geometric patterns on the walls synchronized their pulsing, and the central console array began projecting what looked like a holographic message into the air. The symbols transformed, shifting into recognizable letters and numbers. "It's some kind of automated activation sequence," Dr. Chen explained, her eyes wide as she translated the text. "The facility was designed to remain dormant until humanity reached a specific level of technological development. We didn't find it by accident. It was waiting to be found." Suddenly, alarms blared in the command center. The energy readings from the facility had begun to spike dramatically. "The systems aren't just activating," one technician reported. "They're interfacing with our equipment, accessing our databases, scanning our communications networks." Agent Morris was immediately on his secure phone. "Sir, we have a situation." "The facility, it's not just one installation. According to these displays, there's a network of them. Dozens, maybe hundreds buried across the globe. and they're all beginning to activate." He paused, listening to the response. "No, sir. This goes far beyond the Pacific incident. What we're dealing with here, it's not from the 1940s. It's not from Earth at all." James looked at his family, seeing his own mix of fear and amazement reflected in their faces. Their modest wheat farm had just become ground zero for what might be the most significant discovery in human history. Linda squeezed his hand, while Mark and Emily stared transfixed at the monitors showing the impossible technology beneath their fields. The holographic display had begun showing what appeared to be historical footage, but not of any history taught in schools. It showed advanced civilizations, technological achievements, and events that challenged everything humanity thought it knew about its past. And according to the timestamps, some of these events occurred more than 100,000 years ago. As the implications of what they were witnessing began to sink in, Dr. Martinez's voice came over the comm system once more, this time with an urgency that sent chills through everyone present. "The facility. It's not just showing us the past, it's showing us something else, something that's coming. And according to these readings, we don't have much time to prepare." The blue-green light pulsed more intensely, and new symbols began appearing on every screen and surface. James recognized them from his grandfather's journal, the last words Robert Richardson had written before abruptly stopping his entries. When they return, everything changes. The door was just the beginning. By sunrise the following morning, the Richardson farm had transformed into a full-scale military and scientific complex. Multiple white research tents dotted the wheat field, their high-tech equipment creating an otherworldly contrast against the rural Montana landscape. Black helicopters continued to arrive at regular intervals, bringing more specialists and government officials to the site that was rapidly becoming the most important scientific discovery in human history. The mobile command center had expanded into 3 interconnected units, filled with banks of sophisticated monitoring equipment and dozens of experts analyzing the stream of data from below. Dr. Chen hadn't slept, her eyes red-rimmed but alert as she coordinated with archaeologists and linguists from around the world, trying to decode the vast library of information the facility was revealing. "We've identified 7 distinct chambers so far," Dr. Martinez reported via video link from below. Her team had spent the night mapping the facility's layout, each new room presenting technologies that defied current scientific understanding. The architecture, it's not just advanced, it's adaptive. The spaces seem to reconfigure themselves based on our presence and interactions. A team of quantum physicists had arrived from CERN, their preliminary analysis of the facility's energy systems causing heated debates among the scientists. "The power source operates on principles we've only theorized about," Dr. Hans Müller, the lead physicist, explained while gesturing to complex mathematical formulas covering multiple screens. "It's generating energy through what appears to be controlled manipulation of space-time itself." James and his family had been given a dedicated space in the command center, their unique connection to the site making them invaluable to the research effort. Emily's photographic documentation from the first day had proved surprisingly important. Her images captured details the professional equipment had somehow missed. Mark's natural aptitude for patterns had helped identify connections between the facility's symbols and ancient archaeological sites. "Look at this," Dr. Chen called, projecting a new holographic sequence from the facility's database. The display showed clear connections between the technology beneath the farm and mysterious structures found around the world. The precise stone cutting at Pumapunku, the inexplicable electromagnetic properties of the Great Pyramid, the perfectly spherical stone spheres of Costa Rica. "Sir, the genetic analysis just came in," a junior agent reported to Morris, handing over a tablet. His eyes widened as he reviewed the data. "Get me the Secretary of Defense," he ordered, stepping away from the group. "The Richardson bloodline. It's not a coincidence. They were chosen specifically. The genetics go back much further than we thought." In the primary chamber below, Dr. Martinez's team had managed to activate what appeared to be a communication system. "The facility isn't just a library or research station," she reported, her voice tense with excitement. "It's a node in a vast network, and it's not dormant anymore. It's actively reaching out to other installations." Satellite data began showing energy signatures matching the Richardson site, appearing at locations across the globe, deep in the Amazon rainforest, beneath the ice of Antarctica, in the remote mountains of Tibet. Each site corresponded perfectly with regions of unexplained archaeological phenomena and local legends of gods who promised to return. "Your grandfather wasn't just chosen to guard this place," Dr. Chen explained to James, showing him newly decoded documents. "He was part of a much larger plan, the Pacific Incident in 1945. It wasn't a discovery, it was a reunion. Something recognized him, specifically him, because of his genetic profile. The facility's systems continued to integrate with modern technology at an alarming rate. Screens throughout the command center flickered with streams of data as the alien computers accessed and analyzed a century of human technological development. "It's like it's evaluating us," one technician observed, "measuring our progress against some predetermined benchmark." Linda had been quietly working with the medical team, reviewing the family's genetic testing results. "James," she called, her voice unsteady, "you need to see this. It's about the kids, their DNA. There are sequences that don't match anything in the human genome database, patterns that echo the facility's code." A deeper analysis of Robert Richardson's journal revealed a coded message hidden in a seemingly random series of numbers. "He knew," Dr. Chen said, decoding the final entry. "He knew they would return, and he knew it would be during your lifetime, James. This farm, your family's presence here, none of it was random. Your grandfather was making sure the right people would be here when it happened." Reports began coming in from other sites around the world. Similar facilities were being discovered, each one activating in sequence, each one connected to families with unexplainable genetic markers. The pattern was too precise to be coincidence, too widespread to be contained. The holographic displays in the main chamber had begun showing what appeared to be technical schematics, designs for technologies far beyond current human capabilities. "These aren't just historical records," Dr. Muller observed. "They're instructions, a technological roadmap leading to something." As the day progressed, the energy signatures from the facility grew stronger, more purposeful. The geometric patterns on the walls pulsed with increasing urgency, and the holographic displays began showing what looked like countdown sequences. But a countdown to what? "The message hidden in your grandfather's journal," Dr. Chen said, her voice barely above a whisper as she showed James the final decoded passage. "It wasn't just about protecting the facility," he wrote. "They left us here for a reason, changed us for a purpose. The doors weren't meant to keep people out. They were meant to keep something in until we were ready. And when the children of the stars return to their seeds, humanity will finally learn its true origin." As night fell over the Richardson farm, the wheat fields rippled with unusual energy patterns, and somewhere deep below, ancient machines, built by unknown hands, continued their mysterious work, preparing for a moment that had been planned for longer than human civilization had existed. The door had been opened, but the real question remained. What else would come through it? Day 3 at the Richardson farm site began under unprecedented security measures. The wheat field had disappeared beneath a sprawling complex of military-grade temporary structures. Satellite imagery showed similar transformations occurring at sites across the globe, each one centered on locations where other facilities had begun activating. The quiet rhythms of rural Montana had been replaced by the constant hum of generators, equipment, and helicopter rotors. "We've confirmed active sites on 6 continents," Agent Morris announced to the assembled team leaders. The command center's main screen displayed a world map dotted with pulsing lights, each one representing another facility awakening from its ancient slumber. The pattern of activation appears deliberate, following the Earth's rotation. Whatever these installations are preparing for, it's coordinated on a global scale. Dr. Martinez's exploration team had made another startling discovery in the facility's lower chambers. "The technology isn't just ancient," she reported via holographic conference. "It's evolving, adapting itself to interface with our current systems. The quantum processors we brought in, they're being upgraded by the facility's systems. It's like giving a calculator to a supercomputer." In a quieter corner of the complex, Linda sat with Mark and Emily as medical specialists conducted more detailed genetic analyses. The results were extraordinary. Their DNA contained sequences that appeared to be artificially engineered with a complexity that surpassed anything in modern genetic science. "These markers," Dr. Sarah Williams, the lead geneticist, explained, "they're like software code written into your genetic structure, and they're becoming more active with each passing hour." Dr. Chen had assembled a global team of archaeologists and historians, connecting virtually from sites around the world. Ancient texts and artifacts were being re-examined in light of the new discoveries. "The evidence was always there," she explained, projecting images of artifacts from various civilizations. "We just didn't know how to read it. These weren't myths or legends, they were instructions left for us to find when we were ready." The facility's integration with modern technology had reached a critical phase. Global communications networks were experiencing unusual patterns of activity. Satellites reported brief but significant gravitational anomalies. Power grids near activation sites showed unexpected surges of clean, inexhaustible energy. The small town nearest to the Richardson farm had become an impromptu gathering point for media, researchers, and curious onlookers. Local hotels were overwhelmed, and residents found themselves hosting scientists and military personnel in spare rooms. The high school where Linda taught had been converted into a secondary research center, its chemistry lab now filled with equipment analyzing samples from the facility. International news networks broadcast continuous coverage of the unfolding events. Governments struggled to maintain order as people gathered near suspected activation sites. Religious leaders offered varying interpretations of the discoveries, while financial markets fluctuated wildly as the implications of the advanced technology began to sink in. James spent hours reviewing his grandfather's journal with Dr. Chen, each decoded passage revealing more about Robert Richardson's true role. He wasn't just a guard, James realized, reading between the lines. He was a custodian, preparing the way. Every decision, buying this land, raising his family here, even who we married, it was all part of the plan. Dr. Mueller's team had made a breakthrough in understanding the facility's power source. "It's not just generating energy," he explained, his accent thickening with excitement. "It's tapping into the quantum fabric of space itself, the implications for physics, for our understanding of the universe. Everything we thought we knew needs to be re-evaluated." Mark and Emily had begun experiencing unusual phenomena. They reported vivid dreams of distant worlds and found themselves understanding complex sections of the facility's symbolic language without training. "It's like the information was always there," Emily explained, sketching intricate diagrams that matched the facility's architecture. "We just needed something to wake it up." More specialized units arrived at the farm, their equipment suggesting preparation for every possible contingency. "We're not just dealing with archaeological discoveries anymore," Agent Morris explained to James. "These facilities, they're not just repositories of ancient technology. They're activation points for something bigger, something that was planned millennia ago." And subtle but measurable changes were occurring in the atmosphere around activation sites. The air seemed cleaner, fresher, as if being purified by some unknown process. Plants grew with unusual vigor, and local wildlife exhibited altered behavior. Patterns, as if responding to frequencies humans couldn't perceive. The facility's holographic systems had begun projecting what appeared to be three-dimensional star maps, showing the positions of celestial bodies across vast spans of time. "These aren't just astronomical records," Dr. Martinez reported. "They're navigation charts. Whoever built these facilities, they weren't just visiting Earth. They were mapping routes across the galaxy." Linda discovered a hidden cache of letters in the farmhouse attic, correspondence between Robert Richardson and other families around the world. They all had the same genetic markers, she realized, scanning the yellowed pages. They were positioned at specific points around the globe, maintaining their connection to the land, waiting for this moment. At precisely 3:33 p.m. Mountain Time, all active facilities synchronized their energy outputs. The geometric patterns that covered their walls pulsed in perfect harmony, creating a web of light visible from orbit. Satellite communications worldwide experienced a moment of complete clarity, as if the signal noise that usually filled the airwaves had been perfectly cleaned. As the sun set on the third day of discovery, James stood with his family at the edge of their transformed property. The wheat field, where he had once worried about bank loans and harvest yields, now hummed with power that could revolutionize human civilization. But as the facility's lights pulsed beneath their feet, a new message began appearing on screens. Throughout the command center, a countdown had begun. "The facilities aren't just waking up," Dr. Chen announced, her voice tight with anticipation. "They're preparing for arrival. Something is coming, something that's been waiting for humanity to reach this exact moment in our development. And according to these calculations, we have less than 72 hours until first contact." The night sky above the Richardson farm blazed with unprecedented activity. Military helicopters circled with searchlights sweeping the perimeter, while strange, atmospheric phenomena created ribbons of color reminiscent of the northern lights. The countdown displayed on screens throughout the command center showed 71 hours and counting, each passing minute bringing humanity closer to what Dr. Chen had called the moment of convergence. Inside the facility's main chamber, Dr. Martinez and her team worked frantically to decode the stream of new information appearing across the holographic interfaces. The ancient systems had begun revealing their true purpose, and the implications were staggering. The facility wasn't just a storage site for advanced technology. It was a beacon, a signal station designed to activate when humanity reached specific technological and genetic markers in their development. "These aren't just random points of technological advancement," Dr. Muller explained, pointing to a complex timeline displayed in glowing symbols above the central console. "They're staged benchmarks. The discovery of quantum mechanics, the development of digital computing, the mapping of the human genome. Each achievement brought us closer to activation. We weren't just evolving, we were being guided." Agent Morris coordinated with military commands worldwide as similar revelations emerged from other sites. The facility beneath the Tibetan plateau had revealed detailed genetic engineering protocols. The Amazon installation contained star maps showing the paths of what appeared to be ancient spacefaring vessels. Under the Antarctic ice, researchers had discovered what looked like blueprints for technology that could alter the fundamental forces of nature. James and Linda gathered with their children in a quiet corner of the command center, trying to process the implications of their family's role in these events. Emily showed them her latest drawings, intricate technical diagrams that seemed to flow from her mind without conscious thought. Mark had developed an ability to interact with the facilities, interfaces in ways that even the scientific team couldn't explain. "The genetic markers in your DNA," Dr. Williams explained to the family, "they're not just passive code. They're more like dormant software, waiting for the right signal to activate. Your grandfather's generation carried the potential, but your children, they're the ones meant to interface with what's coming." The facility's deeper chambers continued to yield new discoveries. A vast archive of historical data showed that Earth had been visited multiple times throughout human history, each contact carefully managed to guide development without directly interfering. The visitors, referred to in the facility's records as the Seeders, had apparently been monitoring human progress for millennia. "Look at this," Dr. Chen called out, projecting a new sequence of historical images. Every major leap in human civilization, the sudden emergence of complex agriculture, the simultaneous development of advanced mathematics in different cultures, the rapid acceleration of technological progress in the 20th century, they were all catalyzed by activated genetic markers in specific bloodlines. The Richardson farm's transformation continued as more advanced equipment arrived. The wheat field had become unrecognizable under the sprawling research complex, but strange phenomena had begun occurring in the surrounding crops. The remaining wheat had started growing at impossible rates, developing properties that defied botanical science. Analysis showed the plants were being altered at a molecular level by energy emanating from the facility. Underground, the central chamber had become a hub of intense activity. The holographic displays showed what appeared to be incoming signals, complex patterns of light and energy converging on Earth from multiple points in space. Dr. Martinez's team had identified what looked like communication protocols, but the volume and complexity of data exceeded anything human computers could process. "The facilities aren't just sending a signal," Dr. Muller realized, reviewing the latest quantum measurements. "They're preparing to receive something. The energy signatures suggest they're creating quantum tunnels, stable pathways through space-time itself." Linda had made her own discovery in the family records. Hidden in an old family Bible, she found a letter from Robert Richardson to his then unborn grandson, James. The message was clear. He had known this day would come. "The land chose us," he had written, "just as we were chosen long ago. When the time comes, trust in what flows through your blood. The answers are written in our very cells." The global impact of the discoveries was becoming impossible to contain. Stock markets worldwide had suspended trading as the implications of the advanced technology became clear. Religious leaders called for calm while struggling to integrate the revelations into their worldviews. Social media platforms were overwhelmed with images and theories about the facilities and their purpose. As evening approached, new energy patterns began emanating from the facility. The geometric symbols on the walls pulsed with increasing intensity, and the air itself seemed to thicken with potential. The holographic displays showed a convergence of signals. Something was responding to the facility's activation. Dr. Chen worked with linguists worldwide to decode a new message that had appeared simultaneously at all active sites. The text was complex, written in multiple layers of meaning, but its core message became clear. Humanity had reached a crucial threshold in its development. The guidance that had been hidden in human genetics and carefully placed technology had served its purpose. The time of preparation was ending. Agent Morris received urgent communications from military commands globally. Similar phenomena were being reported at every active facility, a synchronization of energies building towards something unprecedented. The countdown continued its steady progression, now showing less than 48 hours remaining. In the main chamber, James watched as his children interacted with the facility's systems with increasing confidence. Emily and Mark moved through the complex, interfaces as if they had known them all their lives, their genetics awakening to their inherited purpose. The ancient machines responded to their presence in ways they ignored even the most skilled scientists. The facility's power signature had begun to affect the surrounding environment in more dramatic ways. The air crackled with exotic particles, and sensitive instruments detected fluctuations in the local gravitational field. Something was building, a convergence of energies and possibilities that had been set in motion before recorded history began. Deep beneath the Montana soil, beneath the fields where generations of Richardsons had worked the land, the oldest message of all began to appear. Projected in lights that seemed to bend reality itself, the words materialized in every human language simultaneously. The children of Earth have awakened. The cedars return to greet their harvest, The countdown approached its final hours as humanity stood on the brink of its greatest revelation. The door in the Richardsons' wheat field had been just the beginning, a key turning in a lock that had been crafted millions of years ago. As night fell over the farm, the stars above seemed to shine with new significance, their light carrying promises of answers to questions humans had asked since they first looked up at the sky and wondered about their true origins. Through it all, the facility's systems continued their ancient work, preparing Earth and its chosen families for a reunion countless generations in the making. The Richardson farm, once a simple plot of land in rural Montana, had become the center of humanity's next great leap forward. The real question was no longer what lay behind the door, but what would step through it when the countdown reached zero. With less than 24 hours remaining on the countdown, the world held its breath. Every television network, streaming service, and news outlet focused on the events unfolding at the Richardson farm and similar sites worldwide. The quiet Montana morning was shattered by the arrival of more military aircraft, their sleek black shapes carrying top government officials who could no longer ignore the significance of what was happening. The president had scheduled an emergency address to the nation, while the United Nations convened a special session to discuss humanity's response to the impending contact. Global tensions that had seemed important days ago faded into insignificance as people everywhere turned their eyes to the skies and the mysterious facilities that promised to change everything. Inside the main chamber, Dr. Martinez's team had made another breakthrough. The holographic displays were showing what appeared to be historical records of previous visitations, not just ancient astronauts, but deliberate interventions in human development. "They've been guiding us all along," she explained, her voice filled with awe. "The myths of gods coming down from the heavens, the inexplicable leaps in human knowledge, it was all part of their plan." The genetic implications continued to expand. Dr. Williams had identified similar markers in other families near activation sites around the world. "It's like a global network," she explained, displaying a map of genetic distributions. These families were positioned strategically, their bloodlines preserved through generations, each carrying a piece of the code we would need when the time came. Emily and Mark's abilities had grown stronger with each passing hour. They reported increasingly vivid visions, not just of alien worlds, but of possible futures. "They're showing us options," Emily tried to explain, her young face serious beyond her years. "Different paths humanity might take, depending on how we handle what's coming." Mark nodded in agreement, adding, "It's like they want us to understand the responsibility we're about to face." The facility's energy output had reached levels that defied conventional physics. Dr. Mueller and his team had abandoned trying to explain the readings in traditional scientific terms. "We're seeing effects that shouldn't be possible," he admitted, watching as his instruments registered another impossible spike. "The energy isn't just being generated, it's being drawn from somewhere else, somewhere outside our normal space-time." The changes in the surrounding environment had become impossible to ignore. The wheat field, what remained of it beyond the research complex, had evolved into something entirely new. The plants shimmered with bioluminescence, their DNA transformed by exposure to the facility's energy. Similar phenomena were reported at sites worldwide. Nature itself seemed to be preparing for what was to come. Linda had been working with Dr. Chen, piecing together more of the family's connection to these events. They discovered that Sarah, Richardson, James's grandmother, had participated in a classified program during the 1960s studying unusual psychological phenomena. Her test results had shown unprecedented levels of neural activity, the same patterns now appearing in her great-grandchildren. Agent Morris coordinated with his counterparts internationally as more pieces of the puzzle fell into place. Similar facilities had been discovered under the protection of other families, a network of guardians who had maintained their vigil for generations without fully understanding their purpose. Each site contributed another piece of humanity's true heritage. The technical preparations for contact continued at a frantic pace. The facility's systems had begun reconfiguring the surrounding space, creating what Dr. Mueller described as quantum anchoring points, stable regions where normal physical laws could be safely bent or suspended. The air above the farm rippled with distortions visible to the naked eye. James found himself drawn to the central chamber, where the strongest connections to the facility's consciousness seemed to manifest. The holographic interfaces responded to his presence in increasingly complex ways, showing him visions of his grandfather's role in preserving these secrets. Robert Richardson had understood more than he'd ever revealed. He had been preparing his family for this moment through subtle guidance across decades. The global media presence around the farm had swelled to unprecedented levels. News helicopters circled at the maximum allowed distance, their cameras trained on the spectacular light show now visible above the facility. Social media platforms struggled to handle the volume of posts as people shared their theories, fears, and hopes about what first contact might bring. Religious leaders worldwide offered varying interpretations of the unfolding events. Some saw it as confirmation of ancient prophecies, others as a challenge to traditional beliefs. Yet as the hour of contact approached, old divisions seemed to fade in the face of humanity's shared destiny. People gathered in countless venues to watch together, united in their anticipation of what morning would bring. The facility's deepest chamber had revealed its final secret, a massive circular platform that Dr. Martinez's team identified as some kind of reception area. The floor was inscribed with intricate patterns that matched astronomical alignments, designed to serve as a landing point for whatever or whoever was approaching Earth. As night fell for the last time before contact, the Richardson family gathered in the command center, watching the countdown tick away, its final hours. The children's eyes glowed faintly in the dark, their activated genetics preparing them for their role as interpreters between humanity and its long-absent guardians. Linda held James's hand tightly, both of them feeling the weight of countless generations who had preserved this land, this legacy, for this precise moment. The facility's energy patterns had synchronized globally, creating a network of light visible from space. Satellite images showed a web of connected power signatures encircling the Earth, each node anchored at a family farm or homestead where generations had maintained their connection to the land without knowing their true purpose. The final hours ticked away as humanity stood on the brink of its greatest revelation. The door discovered in a modest Montana wheat field had been just the first step in a journey that would redefine human history. As midnight approached, a new message appeared across all facility interfaces worldwide. The circle closes. The children are ready. The reunion begins at dawn. The pre-dawn hours at the Richardson farm crackled with unprecedented energy. The countdown showed less than 3 hours remaining, and the facility's power signatures had reached levels that caused the surrounding air to shimmer like a desert mirage. Military personnel had established a 5-mile exclusion zone around the property, though the phenomena occurring above the site were visible from much farther away. The command center hummed with intense activity as final preparations were made for contact. Dr. Martinez's team had evacuated the underground chambers after the energy levels became too dangerous for unprotected human presence. Only Emily and Mark seemed able to withstand prolonged exposure to the facility's increasingly powerful emissions, their activated genetics providing some form of natural shielding. The children's neural patterns have synchronized with the facility's primary frequency, Dr. Williams reported, monitoring their vital signs. Emily and Mark stood near the central console, their eyes reflecting the shifting lights of the holographic displays. They moved in perfect unison, their movements matching the complex rhythms of the ancient machinery, as if they were part of a choreographed dance millions of years in the making. Dr. Muller's quantum sensors had detected something extraordinary in the upper atmosphere. "We're recording distortions in the fabric of space-time," he announced, his voice tight with excitement and concern. "Something is approaching Earth, but not through normal space. They're using the facility's network as a kind of anchor point, creating stable corridors through dimensions we barely understand." The global response had reached a fever pitch. Markets worldwide had suspended trading as humanity collectively held its breath. Religious gatherings filled streets and squares across the planet. Military forces maintained high alert while simultaneously acknowledging their powerlessness against the level of technology they were witnessing. The morning news broadcasts focused on nothing else, their cameras trained on the spectacular light show unfolding above activation sites around the world. James and Linda watched their children with a mixture of pride and apprehension as they seamlessly interfaced with technology that had waited generations for their arrival. "Your grandfather knew," Linda said softly, holding up another letter. "They'd discovered. He wrote about dreams of this moment, of seeing his great-grandchildren standing between worlds. He called them the Bridge Generation. The facility's historical archives had begun revealing their final secrets. Dr. Chen worked frantically to document the flood of information about humanity's true origins. "We weren't just visited," she explained, her eyes wide with wonder. "We were created as part of a grand experiment, one of many garden worlds where the seeders planted the potential for intelligent life. Earth was special, though. Something about our particular combination of conditions made us develop faster, evolve more creatively than other sites." Agent Morris coordinated with military commands as unusual phenomena appeared in the skies worldwide. The northern lights had spread to unprecedented latitudes, and astronomical observatories reported gravitational lensing effects suggesting massive objects moving just beyond conventional detection range. The facility's defense systems, dormant for millennia, had begun powering up, though their purpose seemed to be more about stabilizing space-time than providing protection. As the first hints of dawn colored the eastern sky, Emily suddenly spoke in a voice that carried echoes of ancient knowledge. "They're not just coming back to meet us. They're coming back to complete what they started. Every human achievement, every breakthrough, every leap forward, it was all preparation for this moment. We're not just their creation, we're their successors." Mark nodded in agreement, adding, The facilities, the genetic markers, the hidden knowledge, it wasn't just about preserving their technology. It was about preparing humanity to join something larger, a network of civilizations spanning galaxies, all grown from similar seeds, all guided to the point where they could rejoin their ancestors. The facility's power signature suddenly shifted, its energy focusing upward in a brilliant beam of blue-green light that pierced the clouds. Similar beams appeared at sites across the globe, their combined power creating visible distortions in the early morning sky. The holographic displays showed a complex network of interconnected energy patterns, each site contributing to what appeared to be a massive transportation system operating on principles that defied current physics. Dr. Martinez's final transmission from below described incredible transformations in the facility's architecture. Walls had become transparent, revealing previously hidden chambers. The central platform had begun to pulse with patterns of light that seemed to fold space itself, preparing for what she called a controlled intersection of realities. The children's connection to the facility had become complete. They moved through its systems with absolute certainty, their thoughts directly interfacing with its ancient consciousness. Through them, the facility shared visions of what was to come, not just first contact, but humanity's first steps into a larger universe that had been waiting for them to mature enough to join it. Linda discovered one final message from Robert Richardson, hidden where only a family member would think to look, inside his old tobacco tin in the barn. "When the door opens," he had written, "remember that it's not just opening to let them in, it's opening to let us out. Humanity has been in a cradle, protected and nurtured. The time has come for us to take our first steps among the stars." The facility's energy reached its peak as the countdown approached its final minutes. The morning sky had transformed into a cascade of impossible colors as space-time itself prepared to part like a curtain. Around the world, other chosen families stood with their children at similar sites, all of them connected by genetics and destiny to this moment that had been planned before the first human cities rose from the dust. James looked at his transformed wheat field, remembering simpler days of worrying about crops and bank loans. The land had been more than just soil to farm. It had been a trust, passed down through generations, protecting something magnificent until humanity was ready to understand its true heritage. As the countdown ticked towards zero, he squeezed Linda's hand, watching their children fulfill a destiny written in their very DNA. The facility's final message appeared across all screens. "The circle completes. The children have awakened. Let the reunion begin." Above the farm, above similar sites worldwide, the sky began to open, not with fear or destruction, but with the promise of humanity's next great adventure. The moment of contact arrived with the rising sun. The Montana sky had become a canvas of impossible colors, geometric patterns of light interlacing overhead, like the architecture of higher dimensions made visible. The countdown reached zero, just as the first rays of dawn touched the Richardson farm, now transformed beyond recognition by both human technology and otherworldly energies. Emily and Mark stood at the center of the facility's main chamber, their forms seeming to flicker between physical and energy states as the ancient systems reached full power. Through their enhanced connection, they broadcast a unified message to the command center above. They're here, not just above us, they're everywhere. They've always been everywhere. We just couldn't see them until now. The air itself began to part like a curtain being drawn back, revealing glimpses of what Dr. Mueller's instruments identified as parallel space-time configurations. The facility's quantum stabilizers worked at full capacity, creating a safe corridor between realities. Through this dimensional window, the first emissaries of humanity's long-absent guardians began to emerge. They appeared not as creatures of flesh and blood, but as beings of pure energy and consciousness, their forms shifting between states that human minds struggled to comprehend. Through the children's enhanced perception, their true nature became clear. They were humanity's ancestors, evolved beyond physical form, but carrying within them the same basic pattern that they had seeded on Earth millions of years ago. We have watched. Their first communication resonated directly in the minds of all present. We have guided, we have waited, and now our children have reached the threshold. The beings surrounded Emily and Mark, their energy forms creating patterns that matched the children's activated genetic sequences. These young ones represent humanity's next step, the bridge between what you are and what you will become. Dr. Chen's translation team worked frantically to document everything as the visitors began sharing their full history. Earth had not been their only garden world, but it had proven the most successful. Something in humanity's combination of creativity, resilience, and determination had created potential beyond their original designs. The great advances in human civilization, moments of sudden inspiration and breakthrough, had been carefully orchestrated awakenings of dormant genetic potential. The Richardson farm's significance became clear as the visitors revealed more. This location, like others around the world, sat at the intersection of natural energy lines that crisscrossed the planet. Robert Richardson hadn't chosen this land by chance. His own activated genetics had drawn him here, fulfilling a plan set in motion long before his birth. Every generation of the family had served as unconscious guardians, their DNA carrying the codes that would ultimately allow humanity to recognize and communicate with their creators. James watched in awe as his children served as intermediaries between species, their enhanced consciousness bridging the gap between human understanding and the visitor's multidimensional perspective. Linda stood beside him, tears streaming down her face as she witnessed the fulfillment of not just her family's destiny, but a plan millions of years in the making. The visitor's message continued to unfold, revealing humanity's place in a vast network of civilizations spanning multiple galaxies. Earth was not alone in its development. Other seeded worlds had reached similar points of contact, creating a growing family of conscious species learning to transcend their physical limitations. The facilities buried around the globe were not just communication centers, but transformation points, designed to help humanity take its first steps toward a higher state of existence. Dr. Muller's instruments recorded unprecedented phenomena as the visitors demonstrated their technology. Energy patterns that defied known physics created stable wormholes through space-time. Matter transformed seamlessly between states, and gravity itself seemed to respond to conscious direction. "This is not magic," they explained through the children. "This is science evolved to its ultimate expression, where consciousness and physics become one." Around the world, similar scenes played out at other activation sites. Chosen families watched as their children, carrying the same activated genetic markers, facilitated humanity's first steps into a larger cosmic community. The visitors had maintained their hidden presence throughout human history, watching and waiting for the moment when enough of humanity's potential had awakened to allow for true contact. Agent Morris received reports of massive objects appearing in orbit, not solid ships, but crystalline structures that seemed to exist partially in other dimensions. These were not vessels of war or conquest, but living universities, ready to help humanity learn to use its awakening abilities responsibly. The visitors had not come to rule or dominate, but to welcome their children into a larger family. Through the facility's enhanced communications, humanity learned of its true heritage. The Seeders had once been like humans, evolving on their own world millions of years ago. They had faced similar challenges: environmental crises, social upheavals, the difficult transition from physical to energy beings. Earth was part of their effort to create new civilizations that could learn from their experiences, potentially finding new solutions to universal challenges. The transformation of the Richardson farm continued as the visitors' presence catalyzed further changes. The wheat field had become a living laboratory of accelerated evolution, plants developing consciousness and new properties that defied conventional biology. The very soil hummed with energy as ancient systems, dormant for millennia, fully activated. To support humanity's transition, as morning fully dawned on this new era, the visitors shared their final revelation. The door discovered in the Richardsons' field had been more than just an entrance to a hidden facility. It was humanity's doorway to the stars. The network of facilities around the globe would become transformation centers, helping humans learn to exist in higher dimensions, to travel through space-time, and to join the greater community of conscious beings that had been waiting to welcome them. Above the farm, above similar sites worldwide, the sky had become a symphony of light and energy as more visitors arrived to witness humanity's emergence. The long experiment was ending. The hidden door had opened not just to Earth's past, but to humanity's future among the stars. 1 month after first contact, the Richardson farm had become the center of a new era in human history. The modest wheat fields where James had once worried about mortgage payments now hosted an interstellar educational facility where humans from around the world came to learn about their cosmic heritage and awakening potential. The transformation of the property reflected the broader changes sweeping across human civilization. Emily and Mark, along with other genetically activated children from similar sites worldwide, had become humanity's first graduates of what the visitors called consciousness evolution. Their abilities had stabilized at levels that seemed miraculous to ordinary humans. They could perceive multiple dimensions, communicate through pure thought, and interface directly with advanced technology. Yet they remained fundamentally human, bridging the gap between what humanity had been and what it was becoming. The changes aren't just happening to the children, Dr. Williams explained in a global broadcast from the farm's new communication center. We're detecting similar genetic activations in younger generations worldwide. The process is gradual, controlled, exactly as our visitors designed it to be. Humanity isn't being replaced. We're becoming what we were always meant to be. The facility beneath the farm had fully transformed, its chambers now serving as learning centers where humans could begin to understand and access their dormant abilities. The visitors, whom humanity had come to know as the Seeders, maintained a constant presence, teaching with infinite patience as their long-term plan for Earth's development entered its final phase. Linda had discovered her own connection to these changes. Her background in chemistry had evolved into an understanding of matter at its most fundamental level, allowing her to perceive the conscious nature of reality itself. She now helped other families understand and adapt to their awakening abilities. Her natural teaching skills, finding a new purpose in humanity's transition. James often stood at the edge of his transformed property, remembering simpler days of farming and family struggles. The door they'd discovered had indeed changed everything, but not in the way anyone might have expected. The world hadn't ended. It had expanded beyond imagination. The Richardson family legacy had transformed from preserving land to helping shepherd humanity into a new age. Dr. Chen's historical research had revealed countless connections between the Seeders' influence and human development. Every major leap forward in human consciousness, she explained in her latest publication, from the first cave paintings to quantum physics, was a carefully orchestrated awakening of built-in potential. We were never alone in our journey. We were being guided home. The visitors shared more of their vast knowledge each day, but always in measured doses that humanity could process and integrate. They showed infinite patience with human limitations while celebrating human creativity and resilience. Through the children, they explained that Earth's unique conditions had produced combinations of traits they hadn't anticipated, making humanity particularly suited for the next phase of cosmic evolution. Around the world, other facilities continued their transformation work. The network of chosen families had become focal points for change in their communities, their farms and homesteads, evolving into centers of learning and transformation. The visitors had designed this dispersed approach deliberately, ensuring that no single point of failure could derail humanity's development. Agent Morris, who had started this journey as a suspicious government operative, found himself coordinating humanity's peaceful integration into the larger cosmic community. "We're not losing Earth," he explained to world leaders. "We're gaining the universe. Every fear we had about contact has been answered with wisdom, every doubt with understanding." The changes weren't limited to human consciousness. The environment around activation sites showed remarkable healing properties, with new forms of plant and animal life demonstrating enhanced awareness and adaptation. The visitors explained that this, too, was part of the plan. Earth herself was awakening, becoming part of a living network of conscious planets. Dr. Muller and his team had begun to understand the principles behind the visitors' technology, though implementing it would take generations. "They're not just giving us the answers," he explained. "They're teaching us to think in new ways, to understand reality from a completely different perspective. This is knowledge we have to grow into." As summer turned to autumn, the first wheat harvest since contact demonstrated the physical manifestation of these changes. The crops around the facility had evolved into something new. Plants that could communicate with their cultivators, produce unprecedented yields, and adapt to changing conditions in real time. It was a powerful symbol of how humanity's traditional knowledge could merge with cosmic wisdom. The Richardson family's story had become legend, inspiring others to look at their own family histories for signs of the visitors' influence. Similar tales emerged worldwide of ancestors who had dreams of the stars, of family lands chosen for unexplainable reasons, of traditions that carried hidden meanings waiting to be understood. But perhaps the most profound change was in how humanity saw itself. The fear and division that had characterized so much of human history began to fade as people realized they were part of something far greater. The visitors had not come to conquer or dominate, but to welcome their children home to a family that spanned the stars. As we end our story of the Richardson farm and the door that changed everything, we invite you to look at your own family history with new eyes. Have you noticed unexplainable coincidences in your family's past? Traditions that seem to carry hidden meaning? Perhaps you too are part of this grand design, carrying within your DNA the potential for humanity's next great leap forward. Share your thoughts and family stories in the comments below. Subscribe to our channel for more incredible discoveries being made at transformation sites around the world. The door in the Richardsons' wheat field was just the beginning. Who knows what other mysteries are waiting to be uncovered? Tomorrow, we'll bring you an exclusive look inside one of the newly discovered facilities in the Amazon rainforest, where indigenous guardians have maintained ancient connections to the visitors for countless generations. Join us as we continue to document humanity's greatest adventure, our awakening to our true cosmic heritage. The Richardson farm stands today as a symbol of humanity's transformation, its fields now growing both wheat and wisdom. The door that James discovered didn't just lead underground, it opened the way to the stars themselves. And this is only the beginning of our story, the beginning of